I'm already having fun here in the studio, and although I want to speak with both of them about music and Beatles and Bob Dylan, it's not going to be this tonight. Welcome back to the news today. This is the Daily Debate. The 114th Republican Congress convenes today with a new reality. Republicans don't start yet. I didn't start even. Republicans in control of the Senate and a stronger hold on the House. The new makeup could influence American policy on a range of key issues, including the Syrian war, Iraq, and funding to the Palestinian Authority after their move to join the ICC. In the last 2 years of the Obama administration, how is the new Congress poised to change Washington there and abroad? With me tonight is Marc Zell, co-chairman of the Republican Abroad Israel. Good evening.
Lucy, as always,
great
to be
pleasure.
here.
And also Sheldon Schorer of Democrats Abroad Israel. Good evening.
Good evening,
Good to have you here as well. So I told you, you're my favorite duo. But before we are, I know you have a lot to say. Let's go to our viewers and see what they had to say about that. Norit?
Good evening, Lucy. So it's a big day in Washington, and everything could change with this Congress, from the strategy in Syria to the confrontation with Russia, with Vladimir Putin, to, of course, negotiations with Iran that are set to restart this month. So we asked our viewers if they think this is all for the better, if the Republican Congress will actually change U.S. foreign policy for the better. So our poll actually showed a lot of optimism about this new Republican-dominated Congress. 73% said it's going in a good direction. 19% said no. The comments, of course, predictably had the Republicans vying against the Democrats. Let's take a quick look at what they had to say. West said it's not going to help at all. It just means even worse foreign policy battles between Obama and lawmakers, a lot of power play, and no smart action. Of course, one of the biggest criticism of Washington in general. David said that all depends on the leadership. If the new Congress follows the lead of the conservative Republicans, and yes, otherwise expect the same. So there we have a pro-GOP comment. Laura came from the other side saying not one effective piece of legislation has come from the GOP. She continues to say if the party was actually aiming to help Americans at home and abroad, I'd welcome it. She says their focus is instead defying Democrats and just blaming Obama. And let's end with J.R. King, who actually came at it from a slightly provocative perspective, I guess. Congress shouldn't be in control of foreign policy, he says, in the first place. More often than not, it undermines national interest. He goes on to say international diplomacy involves a lot of delicate behavior on many fronts, and a body like Congress can't do that job well. So big day in Washington. Is it going to change the policy for the better, for the worse, or as one of our viewers said, are we going to see just a 2-year deadlock between Congress and the White House? I'm sure you're headed for a lively debate on this subject, so I'll pass it back to you.
See, even Reed knows that you're going to do a lively debate. So
You're raising expectations, Lucy, you know, on the eve of this winter
do you want
storm.
to tell me that you came to I-24 News and you actually agree on something?
I doubt it, but
Okay.
I enjoy the studio. It's very warm compared to Jerusalem.
So how is it going to change? Is it going to change for the better or for the worse?
Well, look, first of all, it depends on the subject matter. In the foreign policy area, the last commentator that Nori quoted has really his finger on the truth. The Constitution doesn't give Congress control of foreign policy. It gives it to the president. And therefore, Congress's influence in this area is necessarily secondary. Moreover, the president, since the debacle of the midterm elections, has opened up a very aggressive, to put it mildly, campaign of unilateral action. And that's where I think you're going to see the Congress being involved heavily. I mean, the Congress and the Republican leadership resents, and I think properly so, the fact that the president has decided to act on his own even before the new Congress came in a whole variety of issues, whether it be
his job.
Well, no, but his job is to lead and to lead
That's
effectively.
Right, and not to sit around waiting for some Congress to show up.
We're talking about 2 weeks, and what he was doing was, after having sat on his hands and done nothing or done a lot of damage for 6 years, he came into office, and all of a sudden we had Cuba, we had China, we had the immigration package, and God knows what else. And all without any consultation with the party that had just whopped his you-know-what in the November elections. That's not leadership. It's not good politics.
He's doing, the president's doing exactly what he should do, and if he hadn't done it, then you would be criticizing him for not acting. The job of the president is to take leadership, and not only take leadership, to take action in the foreign policy sphere. It was wisely decided many, many years ago when they made the Constitution that foreign policy, especially, you need fast action. I mean, let's say someone invades another country, you got to go in there and attack. You can't wait for
Syria.
Congress with its very, very long process. President can act fast, Congress acts slow, deliberate,
Iran.
and takes forever. The influence that Congress can do is
Russia.
only with the power of the purse.
Right.
So they can spend more money on some areas, they can hold back money. But to act and to make the decisions involving that is something in the realm of the executive, not the Congress.
Mark, I heard you saying for the last 6 years he hasn't done anything. It's like reminds me what the left is saying about Benjamin Netanyahu. For the last 6 years, he hasn't been doing anything.
Are we going into that one?
Let's stay out of domestic
Yeah, I
politics.
agree with
Okay,
Sheldon on that
I'm
one.
not.
Okay.
No, it's okay. I will bring it. I will bring you
You're
to
gonna
for
bring
this
it, that's
discussion
okay.
later.
Fine.
But you see, maybe like we've been talking a lot about this issue. Maybe he decided that enough is enough with the foreign policy. Maybe it's about time that we will stop being America. We'll stop being the big brother of the world and try to solve all the problems and start solving our domestic problems. More than that, it seems that even in the foreign policy, he just did this reconciliation with Cuba, and it seems that he actually is going to come out with something, and also with Vladimir Putin. It seems that oil prices confronting, doing like this, I don't know if it's a scam, if it's a trick that he did, but he is doing something in the last few months.
Well, look, in the last few weeks, look, this
You really
president...
have to decide.
This
Are you going to
president-
complain that he does too much or he does nothing?
Well, wait a minute.
Decide, one or the other. Can't be both.
The big complaint about is how he's doing either nothing or something. Okay, we had 6 years of really misguided foreign policy, in my view. I mean, he had a very clear foreign policy, by the way, which was to reduce the American footprint internationally. He did that. It had disastrous consequences in almost every quarter of the planet, not only in our region, but in Europe, in Eastern Europe, in the Far East, et cetera, and in Latin America. All right, now, all of a sudden, after 6 years, after the American public rejected his policies resoundingly in the November 2014 elections, he's now decided he's not going to sit back and be a lame duck president. He's going to take action. Now, what does he do? Let's take the case of Cuba. Now, there's a lot of people in the United States, and I'll be one of them, who feels that the time's come to do something about Cuba. My mother's a Cuban, for God's sake. But I will tell you, there's a way to do this. First of all, there is in place a battery of legislation that's been in effect for over 50 years, that was passed by bipartisan Congresses long ago under John Kennedy and so on. And you want to get, if you're going to change the policy towards Cuba, you got to do a couple of things. You got to change that, and you got to negotiate with the Cubans. What Obama did with Cuba, with the Castro brothers, is exactly the same thing he did with Putin in 2009. He gave away the store before even having any negotiations. And that's the problem. It's the methodology, it's the approach, and and that's where the next 2 years are going to they're going to rise or fall on how these two branches of government are going to work together.
This is the problem of of Barack Obama. Maybe the problem of Barack Obama that he speaks higher than he actually can do. He speaks bigger than he actually can do. So it's very nice that we're doing peace with Cuba. It's very nice that we're trying to fix the Middle East. It's very nice that you want to go out of Afghanistan. But on the ground, he is not able to do the things and the way in a proper way.
That's what's known as pragmatism. That's what's known as making intelligent decisions based upon what you have. When you're a president and you have a Congress, for example, that does not support you, that fights on each and every turn, and so that limits your power. One of the complaints I've heard from my colleague here: why didn't he go in here and attack here? Why didn't he go in there and attack there? Well, if he had gone in and attacked there unilaterally, if he'd gone into Syria with more troops right away, he wouldn't have had the support of Congress.
You didn't hear that from this commentator. I'll tell you that, Sheldon. No, you
So
didn't.
I did hear it from every one of the Republican leadership.
Well, not
because the
from-
American
I don't-
people have
I
been
think you're
burned.
fantasizing.
Excuse me, the American people have been burned by 2 wars recently, Iraq and Afghanistan, and more earlier in Vietnam, which still has repercussions. They've been burned by these wars. Which have not accomplished. Huge amounts of treasure and human lives have gone into these things for extended periods of time. We're talking like 10-year war when the entire World War II took place in 5. So, and World War I was less. So these are long wars, they cost a lot, and what have they brought the United States? So you do not have public opinion supporting it. And if you don't have the public supporting war, and you have a Congress against that, you're not going to have the support.
Lucy, the Sheldon
So he
forgets.
is doing the best he can
The first
with
2
what he's able
years
to
of
do.
this administration, he had a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House. And it was precisely during those first 2 years that Obama, who was given in advance the Nobel Peace Prize, for what the world expected him to do, started to turn American foreign policy on its head. And there was no Republican majority anywhere stopping him. He had a full authority to do it. And what did he do? He went to Cairo in 2009
You're forgetting something.
and completely misread the Muslim
You're
world.
forgetting something
supposed
very
to-
important, that at the very beginning of his term, the most important thing was to get America back on track. America had suffered from a banking crisis, which came at the tail end of 8 years of Republican leadership, but a banking crisis which nearly bankrupted the United States.
Let me add to it. Maybe he's trying to get America back on track because of what Bush left just with the administration before.
All right.
Because what was the solution? To send troops all over the Middle East?
Wait. The first thing was just to handle American foreign policy. Sheldon uses the word pragmatism. This was the opposite of pragmatism. This was a kind of extreme idealism that was highly reminiscent of the Carter administration and caused problems. I mean, people lost their lives. I mean, do you remember the Green Revolution in Iran in 2009? What was Obama doing? Nothing. What happened in Cairo? A disaster. What had happened in Syria? Another disaster.
But is he
150,000,
supposed to be-
200,000 people lost their lives, and not because we weren't sending troops in every 5 seconds.
It's Obama's fault.
Because the American government decided, under this president, decided as a matter of policy to withdraw America from the world, to reduce the American footprint around the globe, to reduce to change.
You're absolutely right. The first step was to get out of Iraq. That was the first commitment.
Well, what happened? You get out of Iraq and you have ISIS. I mean, there's a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. And this president has demonstrated time and time again how not to do it. Now that he's both houses, thanks to him, both houses of Congress are in the hands of the party that I represent. Now he's got an opportunity, and the Republicans have an opportunity.
I will
The
ask
public
you-
is expecting cooperation, and Obama starts off by creating confrontation.
So I will ask you with the metaphor.
This is funny from this guy.
What-
From this, That's right, because your Congress is the first thing it's going to try to do is dismantle Obamacare and confront the president. And so when it comes to confrontational
I'm afraid
issues, let's hold on.
I'll be going to the Republican National Committee meeting in about 5 days. And one of the things that was said both at the meetings before the November election and will be said at the winter meeting is that the American public does not expect for us to go and make more fighting in Washington. What they're looking for is results, okay? And that's why the American public voted for us in November, Sheldon. Our candidates across the board, from Colorado and Iowa to North Carolina and Arkansas, all of them who made a strong point of emphasizing the conciliatory role of politicians in Washington. And that's the leadership in both in the House and the Senate is committed to this. Now, it's very odd in view of the fact that before they even came today, before they started the Congress, the president starts off on a whole.
So I'm giving you the opportunity to be the United States and not Israel, because Israel, like Israel doing with the Palestinians, no. What the Palestinians are doing is no. So I'm saying you, because everything that Obama is doing is no. What yes? What to do?
It's not everything he's doing is no. As I said, the initiative with Cuba is a good idea. It's got to be done in a certain way. You just don't give away the store before you start it. I don't agree with the president on climate control, but it's important that we bring China into some kind of discussion about this. Everybody agrees that immigration policy in the United States needs to be changed. Wholesale amnesty for 11 million illegals is not the way the Republican Party thinks it should be done. I was just here in Israel. We met with Governor Mike Pence from Indiana, who was here this past week, and he had a tremendous idea that he had discussed while he was a congressman with then President Bush about finding the happy medium between wholesale deportations, which we're not in favor of, and wholesale amnesties, which we're also not in favor of. And he came up with a fantastic idea. These are the kind of things that can be talked about. The Democratic leadership in both the Senate and the House is ready to do this. The Republican leadership is ready to do this, and the president is going off on
I would just say that maybe the United States can never stop being the big brother of the world, because it is the big brother of the world, whether we like it or not. Especially, it's the big brother of Israel, whether
I
we like
wouldn't
it or
use
not.
the word big brother, but the United States has a role to play in international affairs.
Oh, the United States is the big brother of
Okay,
Israel.
anyway,
Believe me.
it's your show.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Unfortunately, it's only 16 minutes. I tried.
I have something more to say. All right.
I tried. We're going out for a small break, 2 minutes, and then we will be back for the one-on-one. Don't go anywhere.